You are watching the New American Media.
And people want to know, Chris Perez exactly want to know the difference, what the difference is, why fans show up for Browns. The Browns may have put a terrible product on the field, but don't forget there's only 8 home games a year. It's a 16-game season. It's a short season. It's not 162 games a year. That, and they had an owner. Granted, they were terrible every year, but he was the guy who still wanted to win. He still paid, the $8 million a year to go out and get Mike Holmgren to be the team president. He was spending money. Money was not the issue. It was an ownership that was still willing to spend money. Now it seems like they have an owner that genuinely cares, about his team more than a European soccer team and Jimmy Haslam, which I like already. The guy's on the field before the games. He's on the field during practice. I like that he's showing that he cares and he wants to be around the team.
Man, I don't know how someone could get into this business if they didn't care. That's just something that I have a hard time understanding.
Randy Lerner didn't buy the team. It was his dad's team, and he inherited the team.
Yeah.
I understand.
Well, his thing, I totally get it, and I think one of these days, Zach, we should really just go back and do like a little overview of exactly how Lerner got his creepy little claws into the team after helping take the team away. It's one of those order from chaos. Create the chaos, and then buy the team, and then here's the solution. Look what I found. I found your Cleveland Browns. Well, wait a minute. Weren't you the one that helped take them away? You jerk. I really want to get back into the story of the Lerners, maybe a little bit down the road. I want to do some more research on it because it was so crippling. I just kind of tuned my ears out and just let it go. I couldn't really follow every up-to-date detail, but knowing that the Lerner family is no longer affiliated, it really feels like a rebirth, like we're back. This purgatory, this lousy transgression that occurred. The dark days are over.
The Browns, what they have been, the Browns have not been in purgatory for the past 10 years. That's the definition of hell. Having a top 10 draft pick every year, winning more than 6 games one time, since 2002. I would honestly, they've just been in football hell for the past 10 years. And it's finally refreshing to see a new ownership in charge. It's nice to see some young talent. Last night, I did not get to watch the whole game yet because on the West Coast, I get to watch part of it. And then, I did DVR the game on NFL Network afterwards, so I did get to watch even more of it. But, like I said, I was impressed with what the Browns came away with last night. I was impressed with Greg Little. Yeah, he's really good with getting the ball yards after the catch. Whedon made some nice passes last night, which I was really impressed with, too. And the offensive line looked really good. They didn't allow a sack last night. And the Browns secondary, the Browns starting secondary also, I was very impressed with.
I watched it kind of like 3 times. I
have to finish watching the game. Like I said, as I watched part of it, I watched the first half. I watched part of the second half, and I want to rewatch the first half. There's times when I want to go back and look at players,
right?
And I want to see how everyone performed. So that's the key here. And like I said, I just really hope Trent Richardson's healthy. I think he's going to be the key to the Browns' offense this year. And like I said, if he's going to play well, if he can handle around 18 to 22 carries a game, I think the Browns' offense is going to be just fine. I really do. I think, like I said, it all depends on Whedon. I'm also one of these guys now. I really don't want to trade Colt McCoy right now unless you can get the right package for him, because it's hard to find a good backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, look at Graham Harrell.
No, he was horrible. He's a former Cleveland Brown, too. He was in Browns training camp a year ago. And, you look at some of these teams, especially a team like the Browns, like Colt McCoy, I don't think will ever be a fantastic starter in this league. I just don't see it. But that doesn't mean he can't be a quality backup.
Well, I'll tell you what I think about Colt McCoy. I don't know that I'm going to ever see Drew Brees, Tom Brady, some of the gunslingers like Cam Newton. I don't think we're going to see that out of Colt McCoy. But I'll tell you what I do see, and it reminded me again. I do see a player that could manage a Super Bowl team. I see a quarterback that could make smart decisions, that if the running game is stabilized and that defense stays in the top 10, I think he could score a few touchdowns. I think he could put some points on the board with a running back that's moving the chains, someone that just needs to keep those first downs going, burn the clock, shorten the game, and let your defense hold the opponent. I see him like a Trent Dilfer, somebody that could win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, there's the thing. The NFL 11 years ago was completely different from the NFL today. Trent Dilfer, I don't think could manage a Super Bowl team anymore. I don't think he's that good of. Like I said, the NFL now is more of a passing league than it was 11 years ago. You're seeing guys breaking all kinds of records now. But like I said, Colt McCoy could be a perfect fit on a team like Green Bay. I already know what's going to happen. I just have this feeling in the back of my mind that what's going to happen is the Browns will wind up trading McCoy for a fifth-rounder to Green Bay or something. And then he'll go in there if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and have a couple good games there, and then he'll, wind up getting a job somewhere else. It always seems to happen. And, like I said, when you have a quality backup that's 25 years old, granted, Wallace is a quality backup too, but he's over the age of 30. Why not keep what you have in McCoy? Granted, whether he's happy or not, he's going to be a backup on all 32 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and you look at Tim Tebow and Mark Sanchez, two quarterbacks that are, I don't know, rated somewhere between 20 and 30 when you compare the best quarterbacks in the league. They're both right around each other in the lower third of the league as far as statistics and what they've been able to accomplish. They have some intangibles, but yeah, you want a strong second quarterback, and that Colt McCoy has a very favorable deal. He doesn't have a lousy attitude like Seneca Wallace does. And you come on, he's four years younger than your number one draft pick, Brandon Weeden. It's not ridiculous to think that the old man might fall and break a hip. I don't want to see it happen, but I'm saying it's possible.
I don't know either. I think I really want to see Weeden be successful in Cleveland. I mean, I really do.
Of course, me too.
And if he has a really, really bad year this year, don't forget we have a new ownership coming in. There's also probably going to be a new front office most likely in a year from now. Especially if Brandon Weeden struggles, don't be surprised if they go out and, go and draft a Matt Barkley type quarterback next year. There are, I'm not a big fan of Landry Jones, but there are a lot of potential franchise quarterbacks in next year's draft. A lot of them. And, you never know what can happen. And I really hope Weeden is successful. I really don't want to be picking in the top 10 again next year. It's frustrating. Like I said, I don't have high expectations for Browns football anymore. Last year I thought they were going to be decent, and it really just it hurt real bad. So this year, I'm going in there with the lowest of low expectations, and I just want them to go out there and just be competitive and win some games. Because, like I said, they're young. They have a rookie starting wide receiver, in Josh Gordon, a second year in Greg Little, a rookie quarterback, a rookie starting running back, and a rookie right tackle. And so you can't go in there and expect them to win 11 games. But like I said, they should be better than last year. The running game should be better than this year. Hardesty has a year to his belt now. You have Trent Richardson, who's an upgrade from Peyton Hillis, who was horrible last year. Brandon Weeden, like I said, can't be worse than Colt McCoy. And if he is, then Colt McCoy's still on your roster right now. Play him if Brandon Weeden's that bad after 7 or 8 games. And and you have Mitchell Schwartz, who cannot be worse than O'Neal Cousins, the starting right tackle last year, who was arguably the worst right tackle in the league, according to Pro Football Focus.
Well, they have a chance to work on things in the preseason, obviously, and I watching things yesterday, trying to soak it all up. What I took away from it is, I loved the turnovers. I loved when Sheldon Brown got beat. He reached in and pulled. He did that yank and tear, that twist thing that you've seen the Steelers abusing the Browns with for 2 decades, where they go after the football. I saw where we got into the end zone and they did a twist. Once again, a twist where the defensive end kind of took a step back, let the tackle distract him, and then he worked around back on the inside and got a safety on their quarterback. I like that we're going after the big plays and we're creating points on defense. And this is a team, this Cleveland Browns team, there were a lot of games that they were in last year that were decided within 7 points or 9 points.
Well, exactly my point is what I was talking about this year. That's what shocks me when people are saying they're going to win 1 game this year. Any writer who speculates you're going to win 1 game this year has to be a complete moron, because after watching the Browns last year, I'm not saying they were a good team because they weren't a good team. They only won 4 games.
They could have been 8-8.
So many of those games were so close. They could have beaten Pittsburgh both times last year. They should have beaten Pittsburgh both times this year. They should have beaten Baltimore in Baltimore last year, when we had that, the game with Seneca Wallace. We should have beaten Arizona. We lost in overtime in that game. There were so many games last year where that team should have won and could have won. Cincinnati, they should have beaten twice. You just look at it and you go, this team, if just a couple plays go right, in this year we have a better running game with Richardson, and if Weeden is better than McCoy and get the receivers the football, this team, you're looking at a team that might not be half bad.
Whedon has some
granted,
arm strength,
I'm showing
man.
a lot of optimism here, but like I'm saying at the same time, is all it takes for a couple things to go right. McCoy could not throw the ball, it didn't seem like last year, more than 8 yards down the field.
He didn't want to, and when he didn't really have the chance. Nobody was respecting the run. They were teeing off on him. He was on his back half the game. I mean, I don't care who you are. If Tom Brady's getting hammered like that, you look at Michael Vick and how often he gets injured. You just cannot keep smashing into a quarterback and expect him to have any pocket presence or be able to have 3.5 seconds to launch one deep. But Brandon Whedon, he's got arm strength. You got to watch it.
Whedon last night was he came in for one play before the half, immediately slips. Jordan Norwood slips under the coverage, and Whedon just throws a bullet right in there, and puts the Browns right in field range. Granted, Phil Dawson missed the field goal. It was a 55-yarder, but I mean, it was just a perfect pass. Right, he opened up the seam right down the middle of the field, and it was a perfect pass, and it's something McCoy could have never done. It's a throw McCoy could have never made.
Yeah, and it opens up the type of offense that you allow yourself to call. You talk about Holmgren, and you look at the quarterbacks that he's worked with. Think of the Brett Favres, and you need someone with a rifle. And it's like when you're trying to call your plays, when you're, and I know Holmgren isn't doing that necessarily. Shermer's the head coach, and Childress is the. We have a lot of coaches, by the way. I talk about the coaching
staff.
There
were former head coaches.
Yeah,
you can look at it. Childress was one win away from going to the Super Bowl with the Minnesota Vikings. Which granted, a lot of people didn't like him as a coach, but granted, had Favre not made a boneheaded decision, running to his right and throwing to his left, Minnesota would probably wind up in the Super Bowl. And you have to look at Dick Jerome, who in 2001 was the NFL head coach of the year. The Bears went 13-3. When he was the head coach, he did win NFL coach of the year. I remember it like it was yesterday because David Terrell had that game against the Cleveland Browns where the Browns managed to be up by 2 touchdowns in the final minute of the game and somehow lost. But, only in Cleveland, well, I could say Buffalo too, but only in Cleveland and Buffalo would something like that happen.
Snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory.
But the one nice thing is they have the experience of the head coaching staff in the NFL. Granted, it doesn't matter whether people like Childress or Jerome. Jerome did a fantastic job last year with the defense. And like I said, the offense definitely, they're not in a lockout shortened season. The offense has more time to prepare this year than they did last year, which I think is definitely going to be a key aspect for them. Having a full off season, and especially having a coordinator there, and a more, basically a more diverse coaching staff with more input, than they had a year ago, I think is going to play into a big role for them. I really do. I think they could help them a lot. And like I said, they clearly have more talent than they did a year ago on the offensive side of the ball. So we should, I'm a little worried about the defense because of the injuries over there and the Hayden pass, the suspension of Joe Hayden, that's looming in there for 4 games. I really hope nothing happens with that. But, most likely it's going to. But, and Phil Taylor's injury, Fujita's out a couple games. The defense just seems to be banged up right now. But, like I said, I came away impressed with James Michael Johnson last night and a couple of the other players on defense. So, we just have to wait and see what happens. But I think the offense is definitely going to be more entertaining to watch than a year ago. I can say that it's not going to be the same type of offense they were running a year ago. I think they're definitely going to open up the field a little bit more, and I think you're going to see Whedon throwing the ball deep. I really do. Like I said, I really miss working with football. I worked with the football team at the University of Arizona for a couple of years. I love doing what I did over there. And, football has always been, it's always been a huge passion of mine. I love the Browns basically more than anything.
Well, I'll tell you one of the positional battles that I was watching, and me as well. When it comes to all the sports, I'm huge into this. Like I said earlier, I started off my early career as a little boy playing soccer, played baseball up until a certain age, switched over to football, and then I played on intramural basketball. We won an intramural championship and played on undefeated high school football teams, and I like to win. I like to compete. I like to play. I understand the game. I think it's a lot of fun. It's very strategic. It's a mental exercise of chess and how you're going to play the opponents. And it's something really, really fun. It's a lot bigger than just a game, and it's just so hard to watch. To watch a lousy product when you know how to do it right, when you've seen it done before, when you know that you're not representing yourself, you're representing a region. It's a lot like the Olympics. You go meet and you make your people proud, and it's like, as a Cleveland sports fan, there hasn't been too much to be proud about.
No, definitely not. We haven't had much to, 2007 was a fantastic year in Cleveland sports. You look at the Cavs made the championship. The Indians were, so-called one game away from going to the World Series, and they would have wound up winning it. And the Browns were, had Indianapolis not given up, the Browns would have been in the playoffs.
Oh, that was horrible.
With a 10-6 record. That was the best year of Cleveland sports I can recall to this point. Where I had the most fun watching them all year. All three sports teams were good, and now we have it where the Cavs are bad, the Browns are bad, and of course the Indians are bad. It'd just be nice to have one sports team in Cleveland that can be competitive at least.
Well,
and like I said, Cleveland is starving for the Browns to do well. I mean, it's a football town. Look what happened in 2007. The national media took hold of the Browns. And in 2008, the Browns had 5 nationally televised games. People were genuinely interested in the Browns were the sexy pick in the NFL by the national media that year. Everybody wanted to love the Browns, and then they just, they laid a goose egg out there in 2008.
Well, by the way, when I started that thought previously, I didn't end up intending to go into the whole Cleveland sports misery angle. What I intended to say was that one of the positional battles that I've been paying attention to was at running back. And, Hardesty looks okay. Yeah, he fumbled, which is horrible because that's just gonna kill him. But if you're comparing Brandon Jackson to Adonis Thomas, I don't think it's close. I think you got to let Brandon Jackson go and take Adonis Thomas. I'm wondering if you have a thought on the backup running back positions. I still have to
watch. I mean, don't forget, Jackson missed the entire year last year. He's still just getting back into football shape now. We'll see what happens. I think you have to see what happens. But like I said, I still want to watch last night's game. I have to go more into detail, more into depth, and watch it. And once I do that, I can make an honest judgment. But I don't want to sit here and just, say something that's off the top of my head that that wouldn't be completely accurate. So
no,
that's
fair enough.
Not say anything at all.
That's fair enough. I would then let me propose it out there that I saw a nice burst. I saw lots of speed and leaning and just popping through holes and just where there's nothing, you get 3 or 4 yards. You're rarely going backward. It was just, to me, it seemed like Brandon Jackson was going in slow motion, and Adonis Thomas has something to offer. So maybe keep an eye peeled on that. Then let's talk about a team that might actually be good. A team that in the preseason is being ranked in the top 20. I'm talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes with new head coach Urban Meyer. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out on ESPN, but they're doing the behind the scenes.
I've been watching it every day. I just haven't seen today's special yet, but I've been watching it every day.
And what do you think of that so far?
I think it's really cool, actually. I'm really excited for Ohio State football this year. I'm expecting, like I said, you can't expect much, but here's the thing. Their schedule isn't very difficult this year. Braxton Miller had a year under his belt now, and by the end of the year, he was playing good football last year towards the end. He played well in the Michigan game. Yeah, he didn't play well in the bowl game. But, like I said, the team, there were a lot of freshmen on that roster last year. Like I said, the coaching staff, we now have a legitimate coaching staff. Nothing's in turmoil. Nobody's afraid of losing their jobs anymore like they were last year, having to go to another school, because nobody knew what was coming. And this year, basically, Urban Meyer's an experienced head coach. The guy's won 2 national championships. He's had an undefeated season at Utah where he went in there and won the Fiesta Bowl, and they went, I believe they went 12 or 13-0. I think 13-0, when Alex Smith was the quarterback. Urban Meyer has a track record with college quarterbacks. And, I trust him. He said Braxton Miller's the best athlete he's ever coached. And if that means he's going to be better than Tebow and Alex Smith, who are both fantastic college quarterbacks, I'll take that any day. So I cannot wait to see what Ohio State football can do this year. The running backs were young this year. Rod Smith, Carlos Hyde. Then you have a freshman running back in Briante Dunn. The receivers last year needed a lot of work. They were a very inexperienced group, especially with Posey being out for the majority of the year. I expect Philly Brown, to emerge. Devin Smith, Stoneburner's going to be playing wide out this year. I just expect, they were a young team last year. I expect bigger things from them this year. And like I said, their out-of-conference schedule is pretty easy. Their hardest out-of-conference game is against Cal, and that's at home. So I think Ohio State could have they could have a very good year this year. Penn State, I don't think is going to give them much of a challenge. Their toughest game is against Michigan, and that's at home. Michigan State's not going to be an easy one on the road either. But like I said, Wisconsin's not as good as they were a year ago. Russell Wilson's gone. So like I said, if Ohio State were to go 10-2 or 11-1 this year, it would not surprise me one bit.
Same here. I would not be shocked with that, and of course we wouldn't have a bowl game.
Honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not saying they're going to go 12-0 because I'm not predicting a 12-0 season. I'm predicting 10-2, or I'm predicting a 10-2 season. But if they were to go 12-0, like I said, their schedule is not ridiculously tough. They get Michigan at home this year, a team they should have beaten last year in Ann Arbor. If it wasn't for one overthrown pass at the end of the game, they would have wound up winning it. I think Ohio State can conceivably beat Michigan this year. It wouldn't, like I said, I would be surprised if they didn't actually. And, because I think Michigan's, drastically overrated. This is a team last year who, barely beat Notre Dame, barely beat Ohio State. They snuck into the Sugar Bowl and beat a crappy Virginia Tech football team, excuse my language. But, Michigan got a Sugar Bowl win out of it without beating anyone all season. Michigan didn't have one tough opponent they actually knocked off last year.
I think Urban Meyer is going to rock it. I don't see any way that he's not going to come in here and do what he's done at every program. I got to watch him at Bowling Green State University when he started off. That was during that MAC explosion.
He did a great job over there too. And like I said, I just love his attitude.
Yeah,
his attitude is absolutely fantastic. And he, and that's what I just love watching the show. It's so intense. He's so intense, and that's what I love about him more than anything. He's a no BS kind of guy. He doesn't. He's on top of everything. Those practices just makes you watch. Just makes you like looking at you like, how can you not love this? This is unbelievable. This is like out of a movie. When you're watching those practices,
like Denzel Washington,
you got all the players fired up. Yeah, exactly. All the players are fired up. It's just fun to watch. And I think it breathes new life in Ohio State football. A lot of people in the last couple of years, granted, I love Jim Tressel. I love what he did for for Ohio State. I absolutely do. But like I said, it was almost time that you're breathing new life into the program at the same time. I've been dreaming about having Urban Meyer as the coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes now for 3 years.
Oh, when Tressel got canned, I mean, I thought about it. And it's still a shame what happened to Tressel. It's unfortunate. It was a bad situation. Don't need to necessarily rehash it right now. But, Tressel was one of those guys. You always knew what you were getting out of him. And just the attention to detail and knowing that they're coming prepared. They're an organized and prepared, talented bunch of people. And it's good. It's good to represent that way, and it's good to have that kind of consistency. The consistency of Tressel. You were going to win 9 or 10 games or 11 or 12 games.
At least 10 or 11 games.
Yeah.
It seemed like every year. That team, they were the Big Ten champs every year. It was rare when they didn't have a 10-win season. It was very rare when they didn't win 10 games.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the best part about them. It was just the consistency of the Ohio State Buckeyes. But like I said, it was frustrating when they would go out there and play USC. When they were a better team in 2000. It was when Terrell Pryor was the quarterback, and Matt Barkley was a true freshman. I was at the game at USC a few years ago, and you're just looking at that game like, oh my God, we're without with Beanie Wells. USC is way more talented than us. They went and stomped us. Tressel played conservative football the entire game, switched quarterbacks between Pryor and Beckman the entire game. And the next year, I still don't understand how Ohio State lost to USC. It was just Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll took some chances down the field, unlike Tressel. And Tressel goes for field goals, when you have 4th and inches with a quarterback who's 6'6". It's just, I like Urban Meyer. That's the one thing I like about Herb better. Herb, was, when Tressel, you would never have a fake punt from the Ohio State Buckeyes. Herb is unpredictable, and that's what I love about Urban Meyer. It's just a whole coaching philosophy change, and that's what I like about it. I really do like Urban Meyer, and I think he's a perfect fit for Ohio State's program.
Well, Zach,
especially because he's bringing the speed over the Big Ten, which we desperately need.
Oh yeah. I've seen him in some of those behind the scenes with the ESPN. By the way, how many of those shows have there been? I only caught one.
Well, there was. I believe it started the other day. I think it's like a 4 or 5 episode series for the entire week.
Yeah, I'm in a situation where my DVR is backed up and I'm missing things, so I've only seen one of them. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's what he's preaching is speed. I heard him specifically, and that's his MO coming from the SEC, is that, you got to have speed. Speed is the great neutralizer. You can teach talent. That's, you can teach the mental aspect of the game, but you can't coach speed. You have to be quick, and that's one of the things that hopefully he's going to bring to the Big Ten, because the Big Ten has sort of had a reputation of just being slow, big farm, corn-fed farm boys, that are very tough in small doses, but they're not fast enough. They can't run with you.
Yeah, they can't compete with the SEC. I mean, it's that's what the SEC seems to bring home the title every year. This year, this is one of the first years I don't have a preseason number 1 from the SEC. My preseason number 1 this year is USC.
Oh, our backyard.
Down the stretch, they looked fantastic last year down the stretch, and I think they're primed for a big season, especially Barkley staying. I think USC is going to be a fun football team to watch this year, and they're going to put up a lot of points.
Well, that might be the case. Zach, we only have a couple minutes.
Barkley to Woods is the best.
What's that?
It's going to be fun to watch.
Which one?
Matt Barkley to Robert Woods. I mean,
okay.
Quarterback to wide receiver to him is fantastic.
Well, I mean, Barkley's one of the best prospects. He's going to be on the radar for anyone drafted in the top 10 next year. That much is certain. Well, let me say this, Zach. We only have a couple minutes left, and we've been talking sports for quite some time, right? What do we say about a year and a half now?
It's over. Yeah, I'd say a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting to that. I don't think you and I have really ever veered off into any of the other areas that our shows go into. This is the Unhappy Hour. We sit down and talk about sports. But we do have a show called Agree to Disagree. So let me phrase a question to you. I know you and I very much we've had a consistent sports-only dialogue, which is totally fine if we want to keep it there. But let me ask you this question, as open-ended as possible, and reply however you feel fit. We're talking about head coaches and different head coaching styles. One of the questions that I always bring up on my radio show is my desire to get a great head coach in the White House. Because when you talk about pride for Cleveland sports, and it's disappointing when the ownership doesn't have their act together, whatever the situation may be. We have an election to make in, 2 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you could take a look at our head football coach of the United States, do you think we have the right head coach for the challenges facing the country, or do you think it might be time to look outside and see if there's another candidate that could turn the team around if we're going in the wrong direction?
If it were me, I'm looking for another candidate at this point, but that's me.
Yeah.
I try not to involve myself in politics too much purposely because, especially being in the sports business, they tell us specifically, a lot of people have difference in opinions when it comes to politics.
I know.
And you don't want to, it can cost you a job. It's cost people jobs I know that have put down, this is a specific story from my freshman year of college. I had a boss who was, big time Republican, big time conservative down in Tucson. Arizona itself is a conservative state, but, southern Arizona, especially Tucson, is very, very liberal. And except for the football program, a lot of the people in the football program had come from Texas, and big-time conservatives. And I told my friend, I said, when he's giving his resume, I said, pull off that you worked at the Democratic National, that you worked, for the John Kerry's campaign in 2004. You don't want to put that on there. And he goes, why not? It looks good on the resume. I go, just trust me, don't put it on there.
Not on this resume.
He leaves it on his resume. My boss went and chewed him out, and said, and basically, and the kid didn't get the job because of it.
Right.
And I said, you cannot put that on there. You don't ever want to involve yourself in politics when it comes to sports because you never know what your boss is. If your boss is a big-time conservative and you're a huge liberal, you don't want to say anything. That's why purposely around the office and around any of my friends in sports, I never, ever talk politics for a reason anymore. I used to love talking about it, and I've tried to distance myself from it so much over the past few years just because being in this business, like I said, a lot of the athletes, are, vote Democratic, that's just how it is. It just depends on which sport. Basketball and football, at least basketball, the players, the majority of them tended to vote for Obama. That's how it was. In baseball, it's completely different. Baseball, you have a lot of Republicans. And, it varies in every sport, and especially with the front offices. You never know what kind of general manager you're going to be working for or what kind of team president. You could be working for Jerry Jones. It's all right to be a conservative in his front office. You do not want to be a big-time liberal working for Jerry Jones.
I've met Jerry Jones. I like Jerry Jones now.
I like Jerry, too.
He was all right.
I met him in the Super Bowl in 2007 down in Phoenix. I love Jerry. Great guy. But I'm just saying, though, you have to watch out what you say.
I hear you, Zach. Trust me, man. I totally understand, and that's one of the things that we do different at the New American Media is we open it up to agree to disagree because I know plenty of Browns fans that are going to vote for Mitt Romney. I know plenty of Browns fans that are tired of the two-party system and they're supporting Ron Paul regardless. They'll write him in. They're done with the Republican-Democrat two-party system. And I know Browns fans that are going to vote for Barack Obama. You know, so
I'll just put it this way. I think it's time for a change. So I think you know my opinion now.
Hope and change?
So,
no, look, I totally understand as well.
I think it's time for a change.
Yeah, I just, you know, I think we're facing some serious financial issues, and the fact that we haven't been able to pass a budget in 3.5 years, it's stunning to me. Nobody could run. Jimmy Haslam couldn't run the Browns without a budget. You know, you can't run the Indians or the Cavs or USC football or Ohio State Buckeye football athletic program. You can't run it without a budget, and our country's been running without a budget for this head coach's whole term. So, you know, look, I guess I totally hear where you're coming from, and that's what we try to do here, though, Zach, is we try to make it safe to just agree to disagree, have a rational, reasonable conversation, and we can have differing opinions, but you know, we encourage that conversation whenever it's offered from the other side, but we don't want to push it, and we don't want to browbeat people about it, because sometimes people just want to be distracted with sports, and sometimes they want to focus on politics. Sometimes
it's not even a choice anymore.
Yeah.
With me, it's like you know, in the business you basically have to, you know, give it up. It's, you know, or you just can't. You have to be very private about your opinions, and you just have to do it for a reason. It's because, like I said, there's so many people. Even if you don't want to argue with them, so many people are so argumentative, and they just want to be able to, you know, debate with you, even when you don't want to debate with them.
Right.
It's, you know,
Absolutely.
like I honestly, you know, when people want to hear my opinion, you know, it's like even with sports, you know, it's very similar in the fact when I tell people, I said, listen, if you want my personal opinion, I'm going to give it to you. I really don't want to sit here and debate you on these issues.
Yeah,
You know,
we don't need to sit and argue.
time.
We don't need to argue with each other. I don't need to convince you that you should root for the Browns. You might have your favorite football team, and it might be the Steelers, and I might hate you because of it. And guess what? I don't really hate you. I just really want to defeat your team twice a year and go to the playoffs and watch you sit home because you've laughed at us for 20 years. But I don't hate you. You're still my brother. You're still a human. I'm still rooting for your life to be successful, you know? And I think there's some room in there between fans who root for different things and people who are into different things politically to just calm down and have a chat. It's very hard to do, and that's what we try to push for here. So I appreciate you being very political in that answer and at least attempting to wade into the swimming pool on it a little bit. I totally hear what you're saying, and for our side, we're just trying to break down some of those barriers as best we can. But we're almost out of time, Zach, so do you have any final words for everybody to wrap up the the head coach simile, the little metaphor that I tossed out there, or if you just want to say anything in general about anything sports related?
I just want to say thank you again for having me on. As always, I love coming on the show every week, and it's always a pleasure.
Hey, Zach, it is a good time, and I'll tell you what, whether it's a USC game or something at UCLA or hitting up the Dodgers, maybe if they make the playoffs, we need to go hang out at one of these events. We got to pick something and just say that's the thing. We need to go hang out at
Definitely.
one of these.
Let me know. I'm free up until October, until the end of I'm free until September 21st. So
about a month, T-minus a month and counting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, thank you again for your time. We shall be talking again soon, and it feels good to have a break from NBA. Thank you, Zach.
All right, take care.
All right. That was Zach Barris, NBA scout, lifelong Cleveland sports fan. Follow him on Twitter. He's at ZBarris. That's ZBARIS on Twitter. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. We're going to make a hard pivot, and we're going to talk with John B. Wells, the Saturday night host of Coast to Coast AM, about all things that are happening in the world.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
Be sure that you go on to Facebook.com and do a quick search for The New American Media and like our page, because we like it when you do that. TNAM Radio, because the news always matters. Hi, Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. Last year I had this idea. I wanted to start a website of my own, not just something, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, and have a thing. I wanted a website. I wanted a home base for all of the ideas and things I'm interested in. I wanted live radio. I wanted to communicate with the globe. I was tired of being spoon-fed dogma by corporate interest and just, here, believe this. I said, no, I think there's something underneath the surface, but I didn't know how to do it. So I contacted Ted Distel of disteldesign.com. Ted walked us through the process of, okay, you want videos, you want to do quotes of the day, you want to have a spiritual section, you want to have a 1984 watch where government's intruding and private corporations are intruding into your privacy. Yeah, those are the things that I was interested in. Ted walked me through the process. We built thenewamericanmedia.com, and I encourage you to go online and take a look at our site. That's what he's capable of. Please, if you have an idea, go to disteldesign.com. That's DISTEL design.com.
Have you ever considered adopting a pet to be part of your family? Our animal companions can be just as close to us as our human companions. If you're considering adoption, please visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Shelter pets make the best pets.
Follow thenewamericanmedia.com on Twitter at American_media_.
This is The New American Media. Hi, it's Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm a sports fan. I was raised in Cleveland, spent 25 years in Ohio. I watched The Drive, The Fumble, The Shot 2. I watched Art Modell steal the Cleveland Browns and win a Super Bowl over in Baltimore. I watched a horrible coach named Bill Belichick go on to the Patriots and win Super Bowls over there. Hooray. I am a bitter sports fan. Let's not even talk about what happened with he who shall not be named, who went to South Beach to take his talents there. Excuse me, I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit there. I am a sports fan who cares to talk about the things that matter to me. That is the Indians, the Cavs, the Browns, and the Buckeyes. But of course, I pay attention to national sports, and we discuss that on our show as well. That's why we have The Unhappy Hour every single Friday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Sit down, have a drink. It's the end of a long work week, and we can all get together and talk about the unhappy times that we've had as sports fans. We've all had them. We've had ups and downs, but as Cleveland fans, we only have downs. Join us. If you're tired of the other stuff, take a look at thenewamericanmedia.com. If you want a sports program that's going to both talk about national stories and care about the Indians, Cavs, Browns, and Buckeyes, come over to thenewamericanmedia.com and bring a couple of your friends.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
You are watching The New American Media.